evening. I'm here live on YouTube and on LinkedIn. I am today going to be talking about culture. So I've had 5 sessions or 5 episodes rather of fundraising. As some of you may know, for those who don't know, so my name is Munwara Ali, and I am a leadership coach, consultant, mentor, as well as a CEO of a charity in East London. I also am a director of a CIC and a international development project in Bangladesh. So that's me in a nutshell. But why am I here today? So from this Sunday onwards, I want my Sunday episodes to be all about conversations around culture. I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago when I asked what subject, what topic you would want me to talk about. I was told fundraising. So I did 5 episodes on fundraising and have now moved on to culture because I find culture fascinating and I think we have a lot to learn from each other. So I thought, what better person than Juliet, who's a wonderful connection of mine. Some of you probably know her very well. She's extremely visible on LinkedIn. And I wanted us, Juliet and myself, to spontaneously start the conversation on culture and see where it takes us. So I'm going to, without any further delay, invite Juliet in. And hopefully, some of you, wherever you're watching from, will be able to join us in the conversation. Do feel free to ask us questions, send us comments. And I hope today's session is going to be insightful. I'm excited to learn. Come in, Juliet. Where are you?
Hello, everybody. Hey, good evening, Monwara.
Hey, good evening, Juliet.
I am so excited about this spontaneous culture conversation. So, thank you so much for reaching out to me to join your series, right?
Yes. Well, Juliet, I just want to talk. And as you know, probably have figured, I'm an extrovert,
Yes.
full of energy
Yes.
and lots of opinion. But
Yes.
I've been watching people and I've been listening, and I have learned so much
Mm,
from my connections on LinkedIn.
mm,
And you, as somebody that I follow quite closely on LinkedIn, and I love the way you are making connections on this platform. And what's really interesting for me is that I'm actually making connections with people that have nothing similar to the job that I do.
mm, mm. And isn't that fantastic? And we are here, and that links in very well to culture. Because I think when we are born, we absorb culture through our families to start with. What our family is doing, what are their customs, what are the songs they sing, what's the food they eat, what's their purpose in the world, what's their identity. And then you get onto a platform like LinkedIn, and then you're speaking to somebody in Australia, in Norway, in Germany, with very, very different cultures. And then you connect, right? And then something really fantastic happens. So I was really excited about coming onto this show, because for me, when we talk about culture, it's really about perspective. It is how we view the world through our culture, through the stories um, that have been told. So that will be repeated. But the beauty and the magic is that when you open your eyes and then observe someone else's culture and you open, that's when your worldview begins to shift. That's why we're here today, you and me speaking. And that's why people create things. You use the word innovation, we become innovative once our sort of view of the world opens. So I like to look at culture as a perspective, as culture, looking through a lens of culture as well.
And it's fabulous because I cannot tell you that sometimes I've read someone's post or followed someone and they've said something and it just really got me thinking. And I find it really, really, sort of opens your mind to possibilities, because I think in my leadership journey, certainly, sometimes I felt like I think I know, But
Yeah.
we get to a certain age and we realize that actually we don't know,
Mm,
because it's not
mm.
as simple as black and white. You look at me, what do you think?
I see a beautiful woman who is my amazing friend, who is so intelligent, whose mind is open. That's what I
Oh,
see.
bless
That's what I
you.
see because that's what I know. That's what that's a lens through which I see people very, very positively. But I know something about you, obviously, through the work that you've shared, through the friendships that we have in other circles. So I've been able to see a glimpse about you, but also your ideals, your values, and how you see the world, how you want to change it. So so that's what I see, Monwara.
And I'm so glad you said that, values. Because I've made some friends and they're actually going to be on another Sunday in future. That's my vision. I see that they are going to be here on a Sunday and we're going to be discussing. And you know what? We have very little in common, but the one thing that really connects me to those people is the
Mm,
values.
mm, mm.
To be honest, before
Definitely.
I had no idea what we're going to be talking about. I know
No,
perspectives.
me neither. I did. Yes.
We,
Culture, perspectives. Um, yeah, I've sort of lost my, but you see, I'll say, so for example, you see this thing that I'm wearing, right? So if I think back to my village in Uganda when I was younger, I remember my aunties wearing it. I remember my grandmother wearing a headscarf, and they all look so beautiful, so colorful, so lovely. But and then I just like the idea that there's a generation that came, and really honored the headscarf, but wanted to wear it in a different way. And so we have this lovely African fabric that's customized in a different way to suit people. So that's sort of what I like about culture, but also taking a step to sort of be innovative and kind of play with it a little bit as well. Um, and also another story, when I first came to the UK, where did you settle when you first came? Were you born in England?
no, I was born in Bangladesh. I came when I
Okay.
was very little.
5 years. Yeah, yeah, I remember I
Yeah.
read that. So I came as a teenager from a very kind of strict family. It was all about education, no boyfriends, whatever you do, please, no boyfriends. So there I am walking Edgware Roads, London Market, freestyle. And then all you hear is, hello, darling. Hello, babe. And I was like, what? Who are they calling love? It wasn't my culture. And I really got so offended, and kind of shy. What have I done? What am I showing them? Only because I didn't hear that in my country. I didn't hear people saying, hello, darling, hello, love. I was like, what have I done? What have I done? But of course, having been here for a while, I've gotten used to it, that's a street talk of the traders in the London markets. That's the way of engaging with us, the way of interacting positively with us so they can do business. So those are just two weird examples I thought of as well. Hello, love. Hello, darling.
Yeah.
Not my culture, another, but still I've accepted. And you kind of play around with that as well. Okay, they're being platonic, they're being playful. That's how you grow when you accept that is their culture, that is their way.
And that I find has always been a conflict for me. The two cultures coming together, the British and the Bangladeshi. Because obviously the Bangladeshi culture is my background. But then added to that, you have being a Muslim woman. And then added to that, you have as well the fact that I'm British. And being a teenager, growing up as a teenager in Britain, uh, I always wanted to be accepted as British. I didn't want to be a stat, you know,
Sure.
or part of a community that didn't really have such good reputation when it came to aspirations, ambitions. So it's, yeah. But I found as well that, as you get older, you discover things about yourself. How much do we actually know ourselves until we push our boundaries? And then we realize there's so much about us that isn't connected to our cultural background.
mm,
that
mm,
innovator in me, for example. I'm a creative, but
mm,
does that does being a creative conflict possibly with one's culture? That's the question.
mm. And that's an interesting one. Um, but I also think that if you look at how society evolved, I think the key thing throughout human life has been about evolution. So I think that sometimes it's how fast that sort of evolution takes place, and I think that they've always been radical people. Honestly, I think in every culture they've always been radical people that might do things even on the quiet side, if you know what I mean. Um, yeah, so as there will be like subsections, such that within the society at large, maybe you're quite sticking to the expectations to how you do things in your culture. But I think that within that there are subcultures that others will know about, others who are on the journey with you, others who are ready to hear about your radical ideas or your ideas around innovation. Um, that's what I strongly believe in subcultures, but also the idea that as humans we want to evolve, we really want to get better, but there's also a kind of safety net and safety, a belief around staying safe. This is what we do. We are these people from I don't know what kingdom come, and this is the way we do things because it's kept us safe. Um, it feeds into our values, our beliefs, and yeah, this is what we've inherited. So there's an aspect around that, but there's also I think that there's an undercurrent with sort of every people, that there will be some that really want to change, one that people that want to adapt, and make things better. It's not coming from a place of being disruptive, but I think it's coming from a place of or evolving or wondering. There might be some people that wonder, or some people that might be creatives, like you, naturally gifted to think out, to sort of think differently. So that's what I think about that.
Have you just diagnosed me as naturally gifted? I
Have
don't
I?
think anybody has ever said that to me. None of my teachers said I was naturally gifted, but thank you for that. I take that as a big compliment.
Yeah,
But
but yeah, we all think sort of we all have different strengths,
mm,
and I really, kind of these are the top of my head as a teacher. Of course, you're working with, I don't know, X number of people in the same room. So it is your job to know everyone's strengths and weaknesses. It's your job to know what excites someone. It's your job to know how passionate somebody is. So if somebody likes group work, if somebody likes drawing, if someone likes reading or going to the room by themselves, it is your job to realize that and then use those strengths to give them a leadership role, maybe, or to teach others about it, but really to honor and make them shine and power more. So if you're a person who likes reading, hey, please do some research for us. Come back tomorrow and tell us all about it. If you're the person who's more practical minded, teach others, show others, what to do. So yeah, I believe that naturally there are some people that we will wonder a bit more, will think, will daydream. Um, I remember my teachers used to say he likes to daydream a lot in class. What is he doing looking out of the windows? But his head was somewhere else. And some people are able to do that, and some people um, are not able to do that. So yeah.
and if we truly believe that everybody is a unique example of themselves, then we have to believe that there are people we know very little about, and everybody we because I'm not the same person, we're not the same people we were 10 years ago, right?
Mm-mm.
So what is there yet to discover, what is there yet to do? And I tell you what really surprised me a few years back, when I suddenly realized amongst the group of people I was around that we had, I would say physically we had a lot in common, but I felt mentally and psychologically there was nothing in common. And it just, something went off in my head, and I suddenly realized, we're not on the same wavelength. We're like, I couldn't even continue being part of the conversations because my values didn't actually, I felt strongly that my values weren't the same.
mm,
So I don't know
mm,
if you've been in that kind of situation.
mm,
Like,
mm,
say, for example, like in a community with lots of Bengalis or your cultural background,
mm.
sometimes have you felt like the odd one out?
Well, I was told I was gonna shine only because of my character. I like to laugh and really
You
kind of
shine,
engage,
sweetheart. You shine,
and
all right.
but I wondered why they said that, because I was in a setting with my tribal people. Let me call it my tribal people, who were all having
Mm,
a party, everyone. But I'm wondering why this person said that. So there must have been something different about the way probably I engage or something. But I think it's to do with my openness, literally. I think that I think maybe being to the UK, or maybe there's something really quite unique about me in that sense, that I have that mind that inquires, the mind that is interested in the other person, in their ideas. I want to know more. So I think that that's where it comes from. But I do understand what you're saying, Monwara, because everybody, irrespective where you're from, I think everybody likes to learn, everybody likes to grow. And I think everybody recognizes that, why am I here? I might actually not be able to sort of realize that, but I think everybody understands the concept of us being here to sort of develop, you know. So I understand when you got to that point and found that um, the circles you were in were not enabling your growth, because that's what it sounds like, that
mm,
you were with,
mm.
with, with the circle of people that they were not really enabling your growth, and then you just had to sort of leave and find your tribe. So I've done that in different situations. I just choose, I maximize the people I want to grow, I want to be in touch with. So sort of minimize interaction with the ones where I don't get any growth or don't add anything to me, and really just maximize the occasions. If someone is curious like me, if someone is on that lifelong journey and is quite explicit about it, that this is what I want to do, but also this is the impact that I want to make. This is how I want to support people. I want people to think very differently about their circumstances, because I think that we have the capacity to develop from where we are to another place. So I seek out people like that, because I think I'm going to get the most from them in terms of my own growth and development, and then also be able to share to others as well. But yes, it has. I would say that I've turned down a few parties. Let's just put it that way.
I
Or
totally, that,
invitations,
yeah, okay. It resonates.
literally. I'm telling you, I have it, because we also have a culture of staying connected, like with
Mm,
Ugandans. So if you've been to school with people, there is that culture of staying connected. So you can imagine how many, if you've been to 3 schools, you have like 3 WhatsApp groups. Each WhatsApp group has about 50, 20 people. Are they all sharing things that make a difference to my life? Are they
mm,
all impacting me positively?
mm.
We might be thinking about what happened in school and think how far we came. But if they're talking about the politics, or if they're complaining about things we have no control over, then that is not the space for me. So I either mute or exit the room politely.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I've been thinking about, like, I've had a couple of people reach out to me via LinkedIn saying thank you, and they said, Munwara, you're the only person I have seen online that looks like me, and it gives me courage to
Mm,
believe it's okay to do that.
mm, mm,
Whereas you will find other sections, maybe other people within the same community,
mm,
who would say things like, she just wants fame, or what is she trying to achieve, and all sorts of stuff. So when you talk about growth,
mm,
I'm immediately thinking about people that, because I, like yourself, I believe people have so much in them,
mm,
but my understanding, or I firmly believe, and it's part of my leadership course, that a lot of people lack awareness. And I think myself as well, I feel like self-awareness is a continuous thing. It's not something you learn and you just like, that's it, you can tick a box. It's all the time, constantly. So I find that with friends of mine, and I can get on with most people, but I've spent a lot of time trying to help them as opposed to focusing on my own growth.
Listen, and I can hear there's a slight pain there because it's gonna be. Mm. So and we want to be helpful. Of course, you want to be helpful. You want to be able to tell people that there is a way, guys. There is a way. You know, if you want to grow, if you want to develop, sort of tune in more into yourself, become more aware of yourself and the people around you and how you're interacting. So I get you. And I think there's a part of me that that um that has had to deal with that a lot through sort of previous jobs when you're working with people that are not quite ready to hear your messages. Um, but and there's a pain, and I know that when people are not ready to hear that message, it's gonna probably take them 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, to or the rest of your life. It might just take them the rest of your life before they realize that, and it's a real pain, and it can be draining, really draining. So for me, the most important thing that I had, I think, a couple of years ago was someone telling me, Juliet, you love learning. You love learning. You love growth, Tonya. I say, yes. You like these ideas, Tonya. Yes. So what are you doing with so and so who's not even interested? Why are you wasting your time with so and so? You need to focus on the Juliets. For me, that was a big shift. You need to focus on the Juliets that are, more inquiring, want to grow, want to develop, don't know it all, but they are developing their perspective and becoming a better person themselves and able to help others. So that's when it's kind of shifted for me. That I thought, yeah, if I say I don't want the pain, because it's so draining. It is so draining when you're in that position. So it was just focus on the Juliets of this world who are growing, who are constantly developing, who know that they don't know it all, who know that knowledge, who know that, yeah, knowledge is limitless. Once you learn one thing, there's another, there's another. Life is a whole encyclopedia, and I think we'll never really get to the end. But what we do know is that as long as we have the capacity, until our last breath, we are capable of learning. So that's what I hold on to. But yes, it can be pain, 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 pain. Yeah.
Yeah, no, lovely. We've got Gula here and Eugenie and Anna Nira.
Yes.
We've got quite a few people here listening. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great to see you all, Gula. And Anari, and Anari is a new connection of mine from Grenada. We just hit it off. Sometimes you hit it off with people on LinkedIn, literally.
Yes.
Um, so that's been fabulous. She's supported me on some of my events. And she had an incredible event that I wanted to attend but couldn't. But yeah, I kind of said, "How was it?" Because that's what you do. How was it? And then we also have a LinkedIn user. I love that. I always love. Hey, LinkedIn
That's,
user.
I think that's Eugenie actually.
Is it?
I think so. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it is.
Oh,
So yeah, so everybody's here to talk about culture, and of course, culture has so many elements to it. So I'm going to ask you, Juliet, and perhaps like you have a very interesting perspective on this. But have you found to also be judged on the basis of your cultural sort of how you present? I know
mm,
these are uncomfortable
yes,
conversations, but
yes.
I think like for me, my learning has been that for me to be a better leader or someone who can lead a team, I need to be able to have these uncomfortable conversations. And I
Mm,
found
mm,
maybe another Muslim who is Asian
mm,
didn't have at all anything like my perspective, and
mm,
and it clashed.
mm.
And
Yes.
this is the bit that I think most people and most women in leadership roles really struggle with, because
Mm,
I think it's not just a woman thing. I think that uncomfortable conversation where we
mm,
talk about inclusion,
mm,
yet we don't realize like two Asian Muslim or two Ghanaian women could be completely different with completely different perspectives. So,
mm.
what's your view on that?
So that's a very interesting one. I felt that I've been looked down, if we can use the word judged, or looked down in both ways, actually. So I felt that, presenting myself in quite a Western way, in some areas in Uganda, I felt that that wasn't maybe acceptable, or maybe there were some murmurings, or maybe I was conscious of something taking place that that's not what we do here, right? So I am conscious that I've rubbed some feathers, but not necessarily had somebody to come and have a conversation. But I was very, very, I was aware of that, but I wasn't wanting to change my view either. So I think in those situations, it was about making other people feel uncomfortable. But then why should I feel uncomfortable? Because of the choices I'm making. Because once your choices are not offensive to, but for me particularly my family, or to yourself, then sort of why. So I've been in you know bit, I've faced it from the other side, from Uganda, when, oh, okay, what does she think she's doing? This is not how we dress here. Is the skirt too short for a particular occasion? And about for England, I've always embraced sort of, I think I wear my identity really in myself. Um, and I'm very conscious. I am very dark skinned, and I've had people tell me on the street, "Hey, Nubian Queen." Or another one, it might be a name that I might not even want to say because it's very offensive. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
I've had situations when I've had that said against me, that people are talking quite offensively, really, very unhelpful words towards myself. And on the other hand, you have people that are sort of appreciating you for sort of, who you are, how you are, where you're from, what that means for them. So when people see me, some people might look at their heritage.
mm,
Some people might look at the heritage that they've lost, that they've never had. I have certain groups, particularly some Rastafarians, not all of them, might look at me and say Queen, and I've had that being said Queen. And I think what they mean is that I represent what they feel to be their ancestry, what they feel to be a place that they're from. So yeah, sometimes you have it. It's difficult. It's difficult that you'll be judged. Um, People might look at you and say, she doesn't know anything. She's from Africa. So, but yeah, I've had to sort of develop a thick skin, I think, and to also have conversations with people that have shown me that I need to be confident because I am unique. That is what needed to happen for me, because when you hear different things about who you are, this is who I am, this is Juliet, this is how I look, this is how I dress, um, you sort of might begin to, think differently about yourself, until you sit with somebody and then who tells you about your uniqueness. Do you then sort of really embrace it, and sort of shine as well? But I've had difficult conversations, Monwara, with tutors that have that have been not very, what should I say, not very sensitive, with other students and learners, and I've really had to have difficult and crucial conversations with them about their conduct, about their behavior, um, and ways of working, all about, being respectful, sort of diversity, equal opportunities. I've also had to have those conversations with people. So yeah.
yeah, no.
Equally, I'm also in a mixed, a dual heritage, family group. So where I am of African descent and my husband is Italian. So we've also had situations where we may feel People made us to feel uncomfortable sometimes. Um, but for us, particularly, it's more around our children and how they'll be perceived, as children of sort of dual heritage, but what they feel about themselves as well. I
Mm.
don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. It's so
Mm,
important. I think growing up, uh, my parents' generation probably didn't realize the Britishness in us.
mm,
They
mm,
they didn't understand that dilemma or that identity. I think there was a lot of I think we went through an identity crisis in the 90s, certainly, where, like not knowing where we fit. And I remember in those days, even like popular culture was whatever was popular in the media. And like
mhm,
our previous generation weren't really part of that. So it's really interesting. But also, I'm thinking, like, I never really think about my how I look or my culture being a barrier to anything. So sometimes I go into an environment and I forget what I present. But but I have also been in environments where I know before I even go in there that there are going to be perceptions and preconceived ideas about who I am.
mm,
And I could be in a group with lots of people and I might be the only Asian woman, and the assumption will be made that I'm not the one in charge you
mm.
know so I'm quite familiar with that as well. So like when you have those situations, like how do you navigate yourself around that
I
situation?
think I talk to myself a lot, Manwara. Yeah, I say this is gonna be okay. Fix up myself, whatever it is, and really present. I really hold. I use my body and my presence to talk to people, and say yes, I sort of belong there. But before I go into the room, I say it's okay, Juliet. It's okay. You know. Um, yeah, I just tell myself it's okay, Juliet, it's okay, Juliet. But also I like to use my presence when I go there. So the presence might be really the bright colors that I wear. Like on Monday that I went to a training, and then the guy said, "Oh my God, we should dress up more like you." I was wearing orange, a bright orange. So for me, it's my presence. So I might go dressed in something totally orange, or
Mm,
something kind of different, and just hold myself high. I think this is how I communicate and send the kind of communicate physically or non-verbally that I belong here. But the rest of it, literally, when you start to speak and show people your minds, show people your ideas, show people that yes, you can listen, yes, you're inquiring, yes, you're a positive person, I think they very, very quickly would engage with you in those situations. But there've definitely been cases where I've been the only, the only African, the only Black person. So very mindful, very aware of it. Still experience that a lot because I sort of travel a lot to Italy as well, and sometimes where we go, there aren't that many people that sort of are similar to me. So yeah, and I hate. Maybe I should rephrase this. Maybe I should reframe it. It's difficult being, the one that sticks out sometimes. you know, because all behaviors are on you. It's not natural to feel that all eyes are on you. You're
mm.
really very conscious of how you're going to walk, what you're going to say, all that. So yeah, there were some moments initially, maybe 10 years ago, when it was quite really awkward. But yeah, you just have to sort of be accepting, really, and
I'm very
take
good
the
at
view. Yeah, and take the view. Sometimes, Monora, I take the view that I'm here for a purpose, and the
that.
purpose is either to learn or to teach somebody something.
Mm, mm.
Mm,
Always,
mm,
always.
yeah.
It's I'm glad you said about having that accepting. I think when I think about this in from the perspective that the way you are curious and I am similar. I when I meet someone, I don't think only what they what they present, I want to know what's in here. I want to know what's in here. And so the more I get to know someone, the more I find. And that discovery is really fascinating. And I have found that, sometimes when I ask too many questions, it can also put people off, because people make the assumption when you're asking questions, you are questioning them, but it's not always the case. It's because you genuinely want to know, right?
Absolutely, yes. And you're being curious. Tell me more. And I will be very explicit sometimes. Say so when I'm teaching, I'll be very curious. Part of my job, part of to enable you to learn is to ask you questions. So I'm very curious about that. So I just say, oh, okay. Ah, ah, really? Really? Yeah. So of course you've got to know, and people want to say, people want to share things. If you ask in a very um, sort of clean way, if you ask in a very very clean way, um, in the sense, so how was that for you? Oh my God, that was amazing. And did you go on that journey? Really? What was it like about? But yeah, it's part of getting to know people, being curious about them, and asking questions. Um, yeah, and then forming a relationship, really forming a relationship at the end of that, and then people feel listened to, people feel cared for. um I'm trying to think. I think the only people that might think I'm asking too many questions might be my children. um why are you asking that, mom? Why? um yeah, usually that's my experience, that it will most likely be sort of my children who might want to sort of say, but why do you want to know, why are you asking? um but yes, we've got to be open with each other, because we want to understand someone's culture, we want to understand what makes them tick. So definitely I think asking very clean, and showing enthusiasm for, about another, really helps with that. Yeah.
Just going to say something a little bit. So one of my colleagues, because I always encourage people to be open, right?
Mm,
And because we're saying how uncomfortable it can be, we want to learn from other people, right? And we
mm.
want to know about somebody's culture or
Of
their
course.
background, because that's how we understand people's values
Mhm,
and people's behaviors. And I once asked a colleague, and I said, oh, well, why didn't you ask? And they turned around and said, because I have a lot of respect for you, I didn't want to offend you. So,
mm,
it's
mm,
quite interesting, because I think it takes a lot
mm,
to have the mindset where if somebody is curious and is asking a question, somebody who might not even look like you, they are not being racist
mhm,
necessarily, or they are, they have a negative thought about you. It might be that they're genuinely inquisitive, but I find that in work environments, no matter how confident somebody is, when you work well together, it becomes really difficult to
mm,
ask those uncomfortable questions, don't
mm,
you?
mm. Yes, and I'm glad you've raised this, and I think that suddenly in some cultures, you really don't ask questions in some cultures that we know. If someone is perceived, if you perceive someone in a certain way, maybe they've got more authority, maybe you have this respect that it's almost a kind of fearful respect. um you just kind of stay away, let them get on with it. I don't want to go near them. So I think some of it is culturally inherited. Um, but yeah, the best thing you can do is to ask. But it takes something, because I am someone who had to learn how to ask. You
Mm.
know, I think I was of the mindset that I can do this by myself, and sometimes I kind of lean. I find myself sort of moving, gravitating back to that mindset, but I'm really aware of it, that yes, of course, Julia, you can do it yourself, but lean back a little bit. There are some things you can ask others. And I think growing up, I just wanted to do everything so well that I never wanted even to put my hand up to ask a question, because of the sheer humiliation you would get in class. How dare you not know that? Get a stick and hit you, because that's the kind of school, imperialistic, you know English, through colonialism. That's something that we got in our school. So you kind of grow up being fearful, not wanting to ask, and also culturally where you respect your elders. So you're always very sort of mindful about what to say, what to ask. And I can see that seeping into one's adult life and maybe in the workplace as well. So yeah, it is hard not to ask things because you're going to get so frustrated. You're going to get a piece of work that you're not going to be able to achieve because you're afraid to ask. You might even go into underperforming issues. You might get frustrated. You might resent your job. So I utterly, utterly, utterly understand that. But I think it's finding someone you can ask. Is there a peer? Is there someone next to you, like a colleague, someone you can approach, and ask those questions? So that helped me. But I remember one of the jobs that I did, when I said, "Hey, Juliet, you can do this," and I was like, "Why has the lady given me this work? Doesn't she know I can't do it?" Uh, and I literally sat there, scratching my head for days and days and days and days, and then until I went to her and asked her, "But what do you want me to do exactly?" She was my manager, and then she told me what she wanted me to do, which was to do with maybe I didn't understand, and you don't want to feel like someone's gonna call you in such a negative way or something like that. So, but it's not the right way to grow. But it's just something we all kind of have to sort of realize ourselves and navigate and find what will really help us. But yes, I get that. I totally get that and understand that. Um, but as what I do for me is ask people questions and encourage people to ask questions. But I also like to tell people that, by the way, I don't know it all. There's some things that I know, but there's some things that I'm curating. Of course, a lot of it is somebody else's ideas. I'm just presenting it in a different way. So I am very much someone who likes people to ask questions because I think it helps me to expand my own idea, and learn and maybe do some research. So yes, definitely. So how is your colleague now? Is she okay? I mean, the person.
Yes, but like it was just an example of I have over the years, like especially in the last 3 years, read a lot about equity, diversity, inclusion, EDI, as they say, is so much more easier said than done. And when people talk about unconscious bias and all of those things, and I started a conversation and I realized, actually, this is what they mean. Because I thought I already knew, but actually I discovered I didn't, because
Mm,
even amongst certain cultures there are going to be differences, and those differences can, like, obviously leadership has a big role to play, and I believe that some of us don't play that role well because it's so uncomfortable to bring these discussions. Because, when you are in a group scenario and everybody is there and everybody's from so many different diverse backgrounds, and you in a leadership role is quite highly influential, you have to be so mindful of what you say,
mm, mm,
because what you say and what you do can have an impact on the rest of the group.
mm,
And also, like, sometimes, a lot of the times, I think people's behavior is very much dependent on emotions.
mhm,
And
mm,
it's very important that we sometimes see these emotions, even if they are not visible.
mm,
And there's a word for that. It's called empathy, right? But
mm,
actually, empathy is a lot more than that,
mm,
because
mm,
everyone talks about empathy, understanding what someone's going through, etc., etc.
mm,
But most of us can feel it. A lot of us, not most of us, but quite a few of us can feel it. However, we don't really know what to do about it.
mm,
So I found myself in a situation where I kind of saw both sides
mm.
of
Yes.
the and I was in a position where I could actually make a difference and help both sides see each other's point of view, because it was opposing. It was very opposing,
mm,
opposite to each other.
mm,
So it's not easy.
mm,
It's quite hard
mm,
because you in a leadership role where you are bringing people together, you can't be seen to be taking one side. And in order to make sure that you are playing your role well, it's so important to understand both perspectives, even if they are opposing, and
mm,
even if one of them actually is very close to your own. Do you understand what I'm saying?
mhm.
It's so
Totally.
important to
Mm,
still see the bigger picture, because at
absolutely.
the end of the day, it's like, when you are managing a team, every single member of your team are your limbs. You
Mm.
can't cut off one limb to,
That's yeah. I like how you say that. Actually like how you express that. Every single one of them is a limb.
mm,
Um, I'm not going to talk about it in a kind of workplace sense. I'm just going to shift
okay.
it slightly sort of to family, where I set up a WhatsApp group just to kind of demonstrate what you just said about leadership. I set up a WhatsApp group because my nephew's father died just before Christmas. Suddenly, he's very young. He's a young boy in university. So
Mm,
I set up a WhatsApp group with the sole purpose of supporting him and getting the people who knew his father together in the same place. We can hold a safe space, contain, and then they can support us. Like in my culture, we support people with contributions towards the funeral. So someone might come with a cow. Traditionally, I'm talking traditionally now, but I just like to speak in terms of in the old sense. So someone might come with a cow with bananas or things just to help feed everyone who's come for the funeral. And for this WhatsApp group was a sense that people are going to come and show love, but also support towards funeral costs.
mm,
So I set up a WhatsApp group. There were about 50 people on it, and it was I was so mindful that this needed to be a safe space for my nephew. But then a few weeks down the line, as I say, people start to have views, people start to think this, think of that. And then I was getting hundreds of several messages telling me, Juliet, shut the person down, you know.
mm,
So, and I was thinking about it in the sense of, as a parent, do you punish the naughty child? Is that the right approach? Or as a teacher, it's about really noticing someone's behavior and sort of responding to them in a good way, but not really, getting away from the class, the course that you've planned. So I've
mm,
experienced it as more recently, and it's even quite raw, that there were very, very difficult behaviors that I had to manage, but I really had to stay within what I felt that I needed to do the right thing, keep everybody there, keep the intention of the support group there. But yes, you just made me reflect on this. But the role of a leader is about keeping the vision, isn't it? It's about
mm,
keeping a vision, letting people really believe, drawing out the best, the strengths in your people, seeing the person as people first, rather than as jobs and tasks. So it's a
mm.
very complex role. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But once you're a good leader with a vision, you sort of bring them with you. And I think most great leaders will know how to bring people with them without necessarily telling them what to do, but with showing them the vision. Um, and 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 then the people realize that's their vision too, right? So when I think about leadership, I always think about Martin Luther King, because that was his
Mm,
idea. He
mm,
sat somewhere, wherever he was, and he wrote his speech, and he had a dream. It wasn't everyone's dream, it was his. But the way he said it, he made everyone believe that, yes, I have a dream. And that is what happened. He didn't sing, and that's what happened. The ones who
and
wanted to join him came.
yeah, and on that, my perspective is that it was actually, I feel, everyone's dream, but he had the courage to articulate it. And
There you
once
go.
he articulated it and he showed people that vision, it's like everybody jumped onto it. And then and I think that is quite hard, especially if you are in my sector where I work in community, is quite hard because you're working with diverse groups, diverse perceptions, and also the preconceived ideas that you're fighting constantly. But yeah, I'm going to ask you, Juliet, what is it about your culture that you find the most like, what do you love most about your culture?
No, that's a really good, interesting question. I don't even know. I don't even know if I've ever had time to reflect on that. But what I do like about where I'm from or the stories that I hear, uh, I like when I know I'm a member of a clan. You know, a clan means you're very, very close. And in Uganda, we have clans. And to be in a clan is really about looking out for each other. It stems
Mm,
from surviving, living next to each other, and really looking out for yourselves. It's a bit like the networks that we have now. Like,
yeah.
I'm going to this network, we look up. I see the networks as a modern sort of sense of how the clans were. So I really like, I'm so passionate about that. When someone mentions my clan, I will say it to you. It's called Ukwera Ngej, Ukwera Yira. Can you pronounce
Oh,
that?
wow. I could try, but I might get a little bit lost. Might need a bit of practice.
So the clan, so for me, the clan, it strips everything back. It strips Africa, it strips being a person, it strips being Ugandan. It's about me as a singular person. Um, and the people that I thrived with. It's about my ancestors and a group of people really sticking together. And the two symbols are one of an alligator and a hare. I don't know what they really symbolize, but if you look at my family clan, there is an alligator and there is a hare. So there's a story about those two creatures, I think, and the symbolism that they have. So for me, I take away the songs that we sing in terms of Okwera Ngej, Okwera Yira. um, I take away the stories. I like the stories that I hear about my culture. I like what the food, our sort of staple foods, what that means. We have sesame seeds. Why do what we use sesame seeds in this way? We have it in this way. Um, yeah, so those are more the things that I take away about my culture. But essentially, it's who I am stripped back. Um, so I identify myself through my culture and through my direct ancestors in terms of my mom, my dad, um, and that we have a culture of very, very strong women. You know, who had to sort of be strong and go and work. So I've seen that a lot in my aunties. I think that is more a family culture that I have. Um, Having a sort of backbone of a strong matriarch and people that I sort of look towards to and sort of appreciate that I'm sort of part of that and I'm going to take that forward in terms of being a strong woman. So I think that's enough for now. I hadn't reflected on that.
No, but I like the spontaneous. Listen, we can reflect as much as we like, but at the end of the day, when we are
Yeah,
cornered, the truth
yeah.
comes out, right?
The truth comes out
the
always.
the truth comes out. I mean,
Mm,
for me, what I love about my culture is all the colorful foods, the celebrations, and actually, what's interesting is because Bangladesh is actually a multi faith country, so you
mm,
do have Christians, Hindus, and Muslims,
mm,
although the majority is Muslims. So what's interesting is there's a lot of festivals, the Hindu festivals that are
mm,
celebrated in Bangladesh, and they have so many sort of food dishes. And what I have found, even with the non-Asian communities I've worked with, usually food brings everyone together. And you know what? I was talking to my son earlier, and he was saying actually that a lot of the food is like there are variations in different places. Like he was saying, Mom, there's a lot of like Bengali food in the Korean, like in the Japanese.
mm,
And like you don't realize until like I had a work colleague in one of my previous jobs, and she would cook okra with the hard chicken, the broiler chicken.
mm.
And I said, we do that in my culture. And said she said they put hot peppers, and I was like, oh wow, that's like very similar to ours.
We have okra too. We have okra too. But I must be one of the fewest people who don't like okra. Maybe
I
because I
love
haven't learned
it.
how to prepare it.
Ah,
Maybe. Mm. But you're
Mm.
absolutely right. Food is something, and when we talk about, I'll tell you, when we used to do when I used to parenting programs, there's a way that I wanted people to sort of connect. They were there because they loved their children. That was the first thing, and that's the first thing I would tell them. And they were there because they want to make something change, something wonderful, which was excellent. So to have a group where there is love, and to have people in a room who are saying, yes, this is not quite going right, but I wanted to improve on it. That was brilliant. That's always how I used to present my programs. And then I would say, now, how many of you here like rice? Of course, really, literally, everyone would put up their hands. Basmati, yeah. So how? And then you'd find someone from Bangladesh who does it one way, Pakistan, the English, the Nigerian. It was fabulous. So they were all talking about this one dish, but what they were doing was sharing their culture, sharing their spices, sharing. And that is literally how I used to get the group together in the one, like the first session, bonding, serious bonding. It's about culture and our experiences, but also that you can have rice, but mine might be with raisins,
Mm.
mine might be plain, mine might be with pilau, mine might be, and that's a difference because that's a cultural difference, but it is still rice, we still appreciate it. And yeah, people just got to learn about each other. So that is a way that I used to do it as well. Because culture, it's very strong, it's a kind of really strong thing. And parents will parent according to their culture in some way. So if you don't talk about culture or what people like or how they were parented or what they love, you're not going to get them past that stage of what can we do now? Because everything that they do as a parent is really informed by culture. So I found that it was really interesting to sort of address it, yes, in a funny way, but later on they start to talk about their culture. My mother did this, my father did this. In our culture, this is the expectation of the children, or even those that had very, very high expectations, they would it always went down to culture before we started to talk about, well, what can we do differently for the child, or what can
Mhm.
you do differently that's going to support the child in a different way.
Do you have a view about uh, dealing with maybe perspectives where people don't want to change and they want to hold on to the cultures that perhaps we want to change? Like, for example, in certain communities where there are certain practices which we know either they go against maybe women, for example. Do you have a perspective on that? Like, what's your view? Like, how do we, if you, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I can visibly see sometimes,
Mm,
even if I have not met those people, from
yeah.
their views and opinions, who they are.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah. I think it's really good to be honest that our culture or the way we behave now is we literally did not decide. We are
Mm,
just following a system um,
mm,
of ideas that have been passed on because somebody else thought that they work. So I usually start the conversation in that way, that this is where we're at because this is what we've been taught, this is what has passed on. Is there anything about your life that you want to change? For example, it depends on the relationship that I have, but first it's about establishing the way we are. It's most of it is not through my choice, you know it's because of the family, the circle. They taught me this is how it is, this is how it is. And then as I matured, I made some choices about adapting certain things. For example, I grew up in a family where we went to church every Sunday, but I
mm,
don't go to church every Sunday. That's something
mm,
that has changed, as an adult. That's something that changed because I wanted my children to access some really important things that they loved. Football, sport.
mm,
You only do it on a Sunday. So
mm,
you can pray every day, right? But the Sunday league is on a Sunday. So there's some things that I've had to adjust. But I think it's really sitting down, Monwara, and having a conversation, because for some people the culture is really strong and tight and ingrained. So you said something earlier about who is in the room. As a leader, it's knowing your people, but it's knowing where they're at, what they're thinking, what's going on for them. Um, yeah, so for me, it's usually about just saying that, there's some things in life that I didn't choose. Right now, I think we have, as human beings, we have the capacity to change. We have the freedom to change, and it is to live our lives fully. It must be the choices we make. um, and it can be very difficult. And I've worked with some young people in a secondary school. I worked with a child who was going through some difficult issues, and they just could not tell their parent. It sounded like it was going to be a death, a really big thing, if they told their parents about their whom they choose to be with, romantically. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So I said, yeah, but I think we need to really help people honor themselves and what they want to do. So I would be leaning more into that conversation about what other choices do you want to make? Are these wise? Are these helpful to you? It's got to be free will and something that will benefit them. Does that benefit you, or does this benefit you? Because I am more about empowering the single person. I
Mm.
am about empowering a single person or a group of people who are in the room. So I want them to make their own decisions based on the questions I might be asking them about what do they feel that is right for them inside. And they know what's right for them inside. They will know what's right for them inside. What can help you? What can you do today or straight away that's going to help you live the life or make those choices? You know, and if it's difficult, just really empower them and give them the confidence to be able to speak to whoever they need to and say, no, mom, dad, this is a choice that I've made. And
Mm.
sometimes you see it when they ask. I've seen lots of shares on LinkedIn when people say, yes, my parents wanted me to be and they
Yeah.
asked me to be and I went and I was miserable. And then I decided to, and now look at me, I'm flourishing. So for me, I would come at it from that angle about empowering the person, looking at what they really want, what will make them happy. Those kind of ideas about your purpose in life, that's the angle that I would be going to.
It's and you and I talk about purpose, and
Mm,
it's important for us. But when they are young, they are it's going to take them very long time, and they'll be searching
mm,
for a very long time until they are comfortable with
mm,
what they feel is their purpose. But
mm,
it's I find that sometimes households and families can have certain practices which they call cultural practice, but it's more like the practice in the home
yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to the wider community.
yeah.
And like that change can only happen once that individual develops courage, but it's so hard in certain communities. Like I said to you, the two women who reached out to me and said to me, Manwara, I don't see anybody like you.
Mm,
When I see you online, I feel like, okay, she looks like me.
mm,
And thank you for being having the courage to show up. And I
mm,
think that hit me quite hard, because I thought, like, how it is sometimes. I'm like, okay, my purpose is to do charity, my purpose is to empower people, coach, mentor, whatever, to create things. But it's not my responsibility to stand on a platform and represent a culture,
mm,
However, when you get people like that tell you, it really does open your mind. And then you think, okay, am I really the only person? Because if I am,
mm,
then I need to continue doing this. Because if
mm,
that's the impact of my action on other people,
mm,
how are we going to, when is anything ever going to change? Like, we talk about more people from certain backgrounds being given the leadership opportunities. But I would do that,
mm,
you
mm,
see, if I
mm,
was given the position to do that. And I do
mm,
that all the time, working
mm,
with, at the moment, I'm working with 7 young women. They are 14 to 18. I'm not going to go to somebody else and say, you know what, give these girls an opportunity because they are amazing. Actually,
mm,
I'm going to use my own position, my own possibility to open up opportunities for them, because who's going to stop me? Me,
Exactly.
you know? So,
And that's fantastic. Yeah. And that's fantastic. And if you think about our demographic, or, I shared with you earlier about the sort of work I'm going to be doing recently as part of an advisory group. It's for a charity in North London. And what they're doing is supporting women from Black and minority ethnic groups to tell their story. And some of those women might be new to the country. They might be like they've been here 10 years, but they're not yet at that stage of sort of kind of fully integrating. So the question then becomes why? Why? Why are they not fully integrating? So what we are going to do is that we're going to let them, they're going to get some coaching, some training, some sort of capacity building skills for them to have the courage to be able to tell their story, because their story is going to be full of culture, it's going to be full of resilience, it's going to be full of power. They'll go to other communities, they will go into other boardrooms where people don't look like them, and then they'll tell them their story, their single story, and then they'll
fantastic.
change. My hope is that they'll change those people's perspectives, the ones in the boardrooms that don't look like them, through them just sharing their culture and their perspective. But yeah,
It
I
sounds like
want.
a
Sorry.
fantastic initiative.
It does, and I'm really excited. You can hear we had our first meeting last Wednesday, just talking about, as you know, when you get funding, you want to look at outcomes, milestones, what phase, what are you going to do, what it will look like. So that is my role in terms of supporting them to sort of put things together. A few of us, but and we want them to grow into leaders, because they're leaders, and the skills that they have and the skills that they demonstrate, the resilience, the multiplicity of cultures is just kind of tremendous. So that's what we're looking to. But I also wonder why they are not yet in those roles, in those leadership roles, such as yours, perhaps. um I,
Shall I tell you why I think? My
okay.
perspective? My
Mm,
perspective is exactly what I shared earlier.
mm,
Those two women who reached out to me and said there's nobody out there,
mm,
right? Actually, you'll be surprised to hear that I didn't really take my position either at the beginning. Because what happens is sometimes you think somebody else is more capable.
mm.
And most of my sort of leadership journey in previous positions, when I was asked, do you know anyone, Munwara, from the Asian background who could be a speaker or who could do this and that? I'm always trying to find somebody, but like not look in the mirror. So for me, what has changed and what has made me realize is that in order for me to help those leaders grow,
Mm,
I have to be an example.
mm,
I have to set an example for them, because
mm,
if they don't see people like me in those boardrooms, how are they going to feel the courage to
mm,
jump for those roles? So that's my perspective, and I only say this because I know that since I've been on LinkedIn a lot more,
mm, mm,
I've had so much feedback, and it's been eye-opening for
mm,
me.
mm, mm.
You know?
Brilliant. There's something about representation,
Yes,
as well. Um, and
that's
if
what
you
I
see,
meant. That's what I
no,
meant.
no, no, it just came in. I was just thinking, no, I was thinking about Joyce. Joyce, Joyce Osei. Um,
Yes.
when I went onto Clubhouse, she told me about the story, how she came about writing the story. And she said, you know what, Juliet, I was with my children, but when I bought the books, I didn't see any representation. I did not see anybody that looked like my children in those books. And that's where she said, you know what, I'm gonna write my own book, children's book. And she'd look at the dynamics between her son and daughter, and what was going on and what was going on. And that's what she sort of put down in her book, which was fantastic. So there's something about the role models and something about visibility. Yes, you're absolutely right. Something about visibility. Do you think there's something about not knowing the other culture or what's in the other room, for example?
I think I think it's really important
Mm,
to be authentic, because you are not going to ever know about other people's culture, because they need to see you being honest and open. The moment they see you being honest and open, do they then develop the courage to say it's okay? Because that's something that I got as feedback from people on LinkedIn, friends I have made over the last couple of years. Also, the last leadership program I ran last year, I was told exactly the same thing, because I have, like, my program is structured in 6 modules, but I'm very flexible. And the way I run it is, there's an element of curiosity to figure the people out, because everybody has huge value to bring to a table,
Yes.
right? And you don't even know, when you're working with people, what collaborations could develop. So I don't treat, like, any clients I work with, I don't treat them as clients. I always think of them as possible future collaborations. You never know.
Yes,
You
yes,
never
yes.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Juliet, you and I are dangerous because it's
Yes,
near.
I know, right? Look at the time.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and wind up. You
Yes.
tell me, what was the last thing? Maybe you could suggest a couple of people you think would be able to add really huge value to a conversation on culture, because I'm going to do this every Sunday.
Oh,
Would you?
fantastic. Yes. I mean, for me, this is just something I like. I'm doing something called Petal Power. I don't know if you know it. Gula has been to Petal Power. It's a kind of Petal Power. It's a monthly series. Literally, we just look at topics. Um, I share sort of my ideas around that, and then I have two guests who come, but the rest of it is breakout rooms and people sort of going and figuring it out themselves, because I think it really works the best when people are
Mm.
having conversations. So as part of Petal Power, whoever is in the room, I kind of say, hey, I know you attended Petal Power. How about you come next month? We're going to be talking about this, right? This is how I approach Petal Power, Petal Talk series, to kind of really honor and say, you know what, you were in the room. I want to hear more about it. So why not come in? Rather than me going outside of Petal Power and getting somebody out there, I honor you, and I believe everyone has value, has an opinion, and we kind of just resonate off each other. So for me, I'm just looking at who's here. For example, I know Gula is here,
Mhm.
Eugene is here, and Ananira is here. She's from Grenada, and I know she did a fantastic event, I think, this weekend. I am remarkable event that she did with women. So I'm sure I'm sure she would be fabulous as well to come as well.
Lola is here.
Lola is here. Yes, these are great people that have come here for your first spontaneous conversation
Long
about,
one, long one.
yes, about culture. So I'm sure it's, they would really
Yeah, I think so. What I'm going to do is maybe for the next, at least for the next 3 to 4 weeks, this will continue. But I am so, so grateful to you, Juliet, because I know you said you didn't have time to reflect. But sometimes the natural stuff, you are who you are. Nothing can change that.
exactly.
Yeah. And thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you.
You are
And
most welcome.
very excited about your initiative. Do let me know more, because it sounds really exciting, especially if you need someone of my background as a representative.
We
Just
need,
let me know.
yeah. It's Petal Power. Everyone's coming. I just put it there, but I think I've had more. The majority have been women that have been attending. The first one I had, you know, it's literally getting people together to ignite. But we are talking about change, and we're talking about the things that we face through change, and having really honest conversations about that. So it's a monthly series that I've decided to do, and then see what happens in December. It's free. It's on Zoom for 1.5 hours, and I love the breakout rooms. So it's just something that I've that I love doing, because I love facilitating. Um, and you grow that way, and sort of preparing for it in that sense, and developing people in that sense, but also learning. So it's a monthly series. I'll be posting you're absolutely welcome to come. Gula was there, the last one. Yeah, aside from what I do on LinkedIn.
On top of everything else that you do, Juliet.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you for your representation on LinkedIn, and thank you for being a wonderful guest. And should we just say goodbye for today? And I'll be back on Sunday next week. Um,
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.